Hey everyone, Hardball here. Please bear with me as I create this latest quick video. Once again, it's been slammed together very quickly and I don't have the time and resources to hire an editor to review my grammar and or other video production skills. So here we go. I'm going to throw down a bet. I bet veterans who don't know about this topic I'm about to discuss are going to be really pissed once they hear about it. How many of you out there heard that there are tens of thousands of U.S. troops who were booted out of the military after 9/11 2001 with other than honorable or bad paper discharges, after the military tagged them with the illegal psych eval diagnosis of personality disorder? Those that have heard of this topic, stand by, for there's a new twist to this abuse, as in veterans from previous conflicts are being tagged with this personality disorder diagnosis within the VA system so as to deny them upgrades to existing service-connected PTSD ratings. I'll explain my case and how I was a victim in this targeted denial gimmick in detail in just a few minutes. All of these active duty troops had previously served in combat and subsequently ran into minor problems later in their service, usually directly related to their combat stress. Instead of addressing the combat stress issues, the government figured out that the quickest and least expensive way to deal with these struggling American heroes, who proved they were willing to sacrifice all and went downrange so others didn't and don't have to, that was not only to kick them out of the service immediately, but worse, was to label them with a blinking red light bullet point in their service and medical records that by law denies these combat veterans any access to future VA benefits. The truly wicked and treasonous angle of this diagnosis is that the bureaucrats use this, quote, personality disorder based upon their Bible of the pointy-headed shrinks known as the DSM series of reference manuals. And since it's a religiously bowed to medical reference guide, the military bureaucrats just nod their heads in obedience. Nowhere in their military service records or childhood records are there any previous entries of this, quote, personality disorder. Because if there were such entries, they'd never have been let into the service in the first place. And most importantly, and as per this holy Bible of the psychiatric world, the DSM states that the criteria for personality disorder is that this pattern is stable and of long duration, and its onset can be traced back to at least adolescence or early adulthood. And as per congressional testimony back in 2010, it's blatantly apparent that a true conspiracy of bureaucrats within the military figured out that they could save the government billions by kicking combat vets out of the service with these bad paper discharges, therefore denying them any future veterans benefits because they're not allowed in the VA system with such a discharge. My first thoughts after learning about this horrendous betrayal of our heroic combat troops is, how many of these troops that received these other than honorable discharges wound up committing suicide after such a discharge? Think of how many of these troops had dads, grandfathers, brothers, uncles who served with distinction in previous conflicts, only to be kicked out of the service after otherwise exemplary service. And how much shame they would feel with such a black-eyed discharge once they returned home to their families and had to try and explain why they were booted from the service with a mental disorder. And don't be surprised if you haven't heard of this disgrace. I've spent 2 decades volunteering in various veteran communities, from spending 12 years as an official photographer and life honorary member of 2 separate chapters of the Pearl Harbor Survivors Association in San Diego and Las Vegas. I was the managing editor of the largest veterans newspaper in San Diego County, the Veterans Journal, and rode on countless veteran motorcycle memorials, parades, and fundraiser poker runs throughout Southern California, Nevada, and Ohio. In the Ohio region. Following every aspect of the veterans world, and honestly can say I never heard about this congressional testimony back in 2010 until just last year. Here's an article easily found on Google. Quote, a top House Democrat this week is blasting the Defense Department over the tens of thousands of veteran discharges the agency has attributed to personality disorders in recent years. Representative Bob Filner, D. of California, chairman of the House Veterans Affairs Committee, said he's, quote, deeply puzzled how the agency could deem soldiers combat ready only to discover a pre-existing personality disorder after they've been injured or traumatized in combat. A diagnosis that can threaten a veteran's eligibility for government-sponsored health benefits. The following is a standard government covering their asses when they get caught. Quote, Chairman Filner said Monday in a statement that, quote, the DOD reports that the use of personality disorder discharges has decreased and that no soldiers have been wrongly discharged. Well, Filner went on to say, I cannot help but suspect that our men and women are not getting the help they need and are struggling with PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, and other stresses of war on their own because of wrongful personality disorder discharges. Filner said he wants to take a closer look at the criteria used by the DOD to guide personality disorder discharges, which numbered 22,600 between the years 2002 and 2007. Under current rules, service members diagnosed with personality disorders lose eligibility for disability benefits from the Department of Veterans Affairs because such a disorder isn't considered service-related. This distinction has sparked concerns among veterans advocates that such blatant misdiagnoses may have caused some soldiers to be unfairly denied their due benefits. Here's one last quote. A personality disorder discharge is a contradiction in terms, said Joshua Kors, an investigative reporter who covered this issue extensively and testified before Chairman Filner's committee last week. Quote, recruits who have a severe pre-existing illness like a personality disorder do not pass the rigorous screening process and are not accepted into the Army in the first place. Since this congressional testimony, all branches of the service have been ordered to review every personality disorder discharge and reissue honorable discharges to all who warrant them. That most likely will be the vast majority of those tens of thousands of bad paper discharges. But this could take years to rectify, and invariably many of our heroic combat troops will suffer lasting scars from their country betraying them. Now, if that weren't bad enough, as a Desert Storm Navy combat veteran, I've been in the VA healthcare system since 1999 and was originally rated at 10% service-connected for PTSD. In 2015, I was increased to a 70% PTSD rating. After this increase, numerous VA counselors told me that you truly need to be rated at 100% and should file for an rating appeal increase immediately. So I did. After 2 separate denials for this increase to 100%, they did stack up a bunch of other service-connected issues such as tinnitus and fibromyalgia and a couple other things to increase me to 90%. Okay? But that's nothing, because there's no, it doesn't matter. It's just they just, oh, you went to 90, you don't get any other benefits. It's just a number they throw up in the air. So I took the advice of another veteran counselor and hired a veterans law firm out of Nebraska by the name of Barry Law. And with their stellar track record and significant number of law associates who are themselves U.S. military veterans, within just a few months, I was increased to 100%, but not for PTSD, only for TDIU, which is total disability, total disability, individual unemployability. They're paying me at 100%, but they're saying that the service related, it's just a stupid rate. I don't know. Well, that's great. But why don't they increase my PTSD rating from 90 to 100%? Well, during the lawsuit from Barry Law, the law firm provided me with a DVD with my entire VA file on it. And I noticed something extremely concerning. In the year 2020, a social worker, not a doctor or psychiatrist, but a social worker who had only talked to twice over the phone, placed an annotation into my medical record of, quote, personality disorder. Nowhere in any of my childhood or prior service medical records is there such a diagnosis. Nowhere in my military records of 6.5 years of exemplary Navy service is there such a diagnosis. Nowhere in my over 20-year VA medical record is there any such diagnosis. Not until November of 2020. Then, in my VA record, following that illegal diagnosis, there are over 150 separate entries and references to this personality disorder, and in most cases, the diagnosis is used to squash any reference to my combat PTSD. In short, they're saying any anxiety, stress, hypervigilance, nightmares, anger episodes, or other PTSD symptoms are not related to combat because this personality disorder from your childhood makes it impossible for the CMP examiners, or those VA experts who are chosen to adjudicate PTSD rating increase requests, is to evaluate if the veteran is lying or not about his service. And they're presumed guilty based upon a computer entry illegally keyed into my record 2 years ago. If I truly do have this childhood mental disorder, why was I in all the gifted classes in elementary and middle school in La Jolla, California? Why did I nearly ace the ASVAB military entrance exam? Why then did the Navy recruiter say, quote, you scored so high on the entrance exam that you can have any of the then more than 200 jobs in the Navy except for nuclear sub-technician because you're over the age of 25. I was 26 at the time. If this personality disorder is correct, and I'm literally a brain-damaged liar who scammed my way into the service, why was I awarded the Academic High Achiever Award upon graduation in Navy boot camp in 1987, scoring first out of 80 sailors? You can reference that in Orlando Naval Training Center Boot Camp Company C-124 in 1987. Why was I either first or top 5 in every one of my technical schools while training to fly in the back of the Lockheed S-3A Viking aircraft? Why was I selected to be a member of the Navy's Personnel Reliability Program, or PRP member? That is, qualified to not only test the extremely classified system checks on, but to load onto the aircraft and, if ordered by the Commander-in-Chief, drop the B-57 nuclear depth bomb so as to either start or continue World War III with an all-out nuclear attack during the Cold War. Why was I selected to be the training petty officer in charge of training 15 other very elite naval air crewmen, ensuring they were all well versed on every conceivable weapons threat from the Iraqis in the combat theater during Operation Desert Storm? Why would a person with a childhood personality disorder that bars one from serving in the military be chosen by the commanding officer of the frontline S-3 Viking Squadron, flying all-night combat missions during our 42 consecutive night missions during Operation Desert Storm, flying off the aircraft carrier USS Ranger CV-61? Why was I subsequently awarded numerous letters of commendation for outstanding performance during my Navy service in one of the most elite job ratings in the Navy? Please have patience with all these seemingly rhetorical questions. I'm attempting to stack the evidence deck. Why did a U.S. Navy admiral state in a commendation letter that I set the highest fleet average on the unit NATOPS evaluation in recent history? Why do all my Navy personal evaluations overflow with superlatives such as recruit poster child image, outstanding military bearing, easily handles numerous tasks simultaneously, hard-charging demeanor complemented by superb technical knowledge, communicates well at all levels, true professional, superb sensor operator, major contributing factor for the squadron receiving the Captain Arnold J. Isabel Award, Top Torpedo Award twice, and the Thatch Award for Anti-Submarine Warfare, or ASW Excellence. Oh, and the Battle E twice. Why would I then become a designated Navy instructor teaching intermediate and advanced acoustic analysis, and then given an honorable discharge in June of 1993? If this childhood mental disorder is so enduring and has inflexible and debilitating patterns of severe cognition issues and poor interpersonal and social functioning skills, why would I go on to a 4-year university at East Texas State University, which is now Texas A&M Commerce, and once again become top of my class academically while pursuing a double major in economics and finance with a dual minor in history and philosophy? Since I found this illegal diagnosis placed in my service record nearly a year and a half after it was first annotated, I created a 12-page document that I demanded be inserted into my VA medical record that line by line called out these incidents of illegally using the mental status designation, of illegally using this mental status designation to deny my PTSD upgrades. Yesterday, I had a chance to download the latest copy of my VA medical record, and nothing has changed. There are now a dozen more entries of personality disorder diagnoses, and it's at the top of the list of the, quote, current medical issues that any VA rep will see when they bring up my medical records. And this is why I'm once again hiring a lawyer to fight this VA abuse. Remember what our two greatest presidents said about our veterans. George Washington said, quote, "The willingness with which our young people are likely to serve in any war, no matter how justified, shall be directly proportional to how they perceive the veterans of earlier wars were treated and appreciated by their nation." And the VA has the temerity to list President Lincoln's famous quote as their official motto: "To care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan." It's time to disrupt and dismantle the Department of Veterans Affairs. Hardball out.